It's 7 o'clock. Let's get started. We have a very busy agenda tonight with a lot to go through. So let's get started with minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read through the minutes? If not, let's take a minute now and read through them.
I had a question about finance.
Okay.
There was page 2.
Yep.
2/3 of the way down. Carol asked if the pool would never be emptied out, and the applicant stated that underneath that it says applicant stated that it would be emptied at the end of the season, where it really wasn't being emptied. It was lowered, I believe, for the winter.
That's my recollection of what he said, lowered, not empty.
So I don't know how particular we want to be on that.
No,
It is
I think
being,
that's good. I think that's a good.
because in
difference.
Nan's notes, she was clear on, how often it would be
Yes,
removed, and if it says removed there, that's really not, it's just lowered.
yes, I agree. I think that was a good point. I thought he said empty. And if he said lowered, then the question is how much?
I think it's to below, where they feel like the pipes are closer to the ground. Maybe Jim may know more about this.
Well,
The pipes closer to the ground or
he should know exactly.
won't freeze then.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
The other thing that I picked up on that same topic was if you look at the minutes here, it says applicant stated it would be emptied at the end of the season by the salinity was similar to salt. I actually don't know what that means. Salinity similar to salt. Sweat. Oh, sweat instead of salt. Gotcha. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? All right, can I get a motion that we?
I do have one comment. I did not replace the heater, so it's the infrared length. So I'm gonna replace that, and then on two, the salinity was similar to sweat. And then what we wanted to do about lower the.
Can we ask the applicant, are we allowed to do that before the meeting is open? I mean, before the. Can we ask him? Yeah, let's ask him that. We had a question about our minutes last month, and that was about a statement. We're trying to figure out, the applicant stated that it would be emptied at the end of the season. It doesn't get emptied, right? It gets lowered, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's 6 inches.
6 inches, okay.
So that would be, and how deep is the pool again? 8 feet?
It's gonna be, 7 feet.
Then
Any other comments, questions? All right, can I get a motion that we accept the minutes with the noted changes?
I make the motion that we accept the minutes with the noted changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next time, next item on the agenda is correspondence. Jay, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, So for those of you that attended the training, thank you. I do have it available. If you would like to watch it or get that resource, please meet with me personally. We tried putting it on the Dropbox and it used the entire storage of the Dropbox. So I'll get it to you by the USB. And then also I sent the referrals to the county and we have not received a response back.
And for those of you who don't have it, I only meant to make 2 copies, but I made more than 2 copies of the ZBA forms. And I thought that if you don't have them, or if you would like a hard copy, could you have them? Would you like a hard copy? The forms
I'll
and the
take them.
flow chart.
You recall that at the last meeting, I had asked everybody to log on to the ZBA website and take a look at the changes that we had instituted, including
You want
taking a look at and downloading the forms, those which are now billable PDFs. So I don't know if everyone did it. If you haven't yet, I think it's really important that you familiarize yourself with those forms. But as we have these meetings, everyone is comfortable that all of the documentation that is required is in fact there. Yeah, anything else on correspondence?
No.
And I've got one thing. I mentioned at the last meeting that I was a little concerned about what we were going to do with long-term absence that we were going to have with one of the members. And we talked to John Lyons about having the chair nominate one of the alternates to be a voting member at those meetings that we were actually going to vote at. Well, it turns out that both New York state law, this is for the ZRC, New York state law and current town law only allow the board chair to nominate an alternate in the case of a conflict recusal. There is no other opportunity for the board chair to nominate an alternate, yeah. So that's also in New York state law. So what John told me was that there have been several communities that have modified their zoning regulations to allow the chair to nominate a person for non-conflict reasons. So for example, I asked the question, supposing we don't have a quorum of voting members, can a chair nominate an alternate member? He said, no, you can't have the meeting. So he and Kim are going to send me some suggested wording and language that if the ZRC chooses, and I hope they do, to update the town's zoning laws, that will allow board chairs to avoid the situation of having to cancel a meeting, for example, because we can't nominate an alternate to be a voting member.
So, all
I'm
those
sorry.
eyes.
Well, the good news is they were unanimous votes. I don't know, maybe we could put some in there to let you know. I don't know, second motion. But it was an interesting exercise to go through. It shows how nuanced these laws are, but I appreciate the fact that John and Kim were so thorough that they found a couple of places. They found New York state law that said it's just in the case of conflict, but then found a couple of communities that had changed their zoning laws to allow that. So Carol, when I get that from John or Kim, I'll forward it to the ZRC and we can add it to the list of items that need to be changed or we should consider changing. Okay. All right, we're going to go into the main part of the meeting. Busy night tonight. Before we get started, can I ask, does anybody on the board have any reason to recuse themselves from any of the conversations tonight? Carol? Good. All right, the first public hearing is for block. Can I get a motion that we open the public hearing, please?
Make a motion, we open the public hearing for the block.
Second. Any of those? Okay, so move. Do we have anybody online?
Yes, we do. We have a Coral Eddy, Aaron Robinson, James Adams, and Jim.
Okay. Well, I'll invite anyone in the room if they would like to get up and speak on the block application. Now's the time. And if anybody raises their hand online, if you could let me know and we'll give them the opportunity to speak. Anybody? Okay,
Can I ask questions at this point?
yes.
So,
You want me to come up?
yes, because we, at the last meeting, I
Hey,
had
Carol,
asked
Carol, just
something
hold on.
about,
Carol, just 1 second. You just come up, you just stand there, state your name, stay right about there so we can
A little further.
little farther back so we can see your face. That'd be great. We're still working out the nuances of the technology.
Still working on my
And
face.
clearly you want your face to be seen now, so.
Yeah, little incident there. I'm Christian with the group representing the blocks.
yeah, you were here last.
I was, yes, so any questions?
Right, and you had mentioned something about, I was concerned about boundaries and buffers, and you
Yes.
said something about Army Corps of Engineers. And you said you'd show me on the map, so
Sure.
I want the map,
Okay,
and I have 2 questions, I have whatever map you want to use, I don't know which one you want. So what does the Army Corps of Engineers have to do with this property?
so they basically regulate for the inland water bodies.
Yes.
And so just be this year, but it being a man-made pond, what they can then dictate is whether or not there's a setback to that, like a
Okay.
wetland setback, and there is no setback. So their boundary of the wetland is just
That's
the
the
body
Army
of
Corps
water.
of
Army Corps of
Engineers.
Engineers, exactly.
Now, the DEC
Yes,
does have a wetland boundary,
yes.
yes,
So
and that is, I think, a blue line.
it's the red line.
Red line.
Yep, and so that was actually what was flagged by them in December of 2022.
Okay, and the DEC buffer zone from here to here, this is the boundary of the buffer zone, right?
Exactly.
This is the boundary of the anchor buffer zone. But it doesn't parallel this boundary. Why not?
Because this is a wetland buffer and this line, the anchor line is a watershed buffer. So that goes off of this blue line in the back here, which is the NWI wetland boundary. So there's 2 different,
Yeah.
like kind of levels of wetlands.
Watershed.
Exactly. So this is what that, I'm sorry. Let me start that. So this is the NWI wetland boundary in the back, again, no buffer. This is the DEC wetland protected area, which is behind here.
Right.
And then they want to regulate that 100 feet. So that's our line here. The watershed is actually from the edge of the water itself. So that's why this line here will mimic this. This one does not have a buffer line. The NWIC.
I thought that I don't have my zoning law with me, but the anchor 100 foot buffer is not a watershed buffer, it is a wetland buffer.
Well, there's it's both, but this is it's from wherever the delineated line is. So the watershed line begins at the body of water.
Okay,
So that's here. So that's why the buffer is actually on the other side, out near the road. Hence, that's the variance we're asking for. So what the variance we're actually asking for is for the watershed buffer zone
okay,
of the 150 feet. We are outside of the wetlands buffer zone, Ancrams and the states, as well as the NWI wetland boundary. So we're outside of those 2.
now, my next question is here. This area
Yeah.
is outside of the buffer zone. Right? Right here.
Correct.
So why isn't the pool placed there? Then you wouldn't need any variance.
Because you can't have a pool in front of the house. That's another zoning rule.
You could have it on the side of the house.
On this side here,
Yes. And even if it went.
Well, this is still in the proximity to the road. So we would have to be from this part forward. So now we would be extremely visible to the road with the pool.
I thought
And then even if it encroaches at all in front of the front plane of the house, then
It's not allowed.
it's not allowed.
that's all.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have a question about that. Can you take the pool where you already have a deck there?
Yes.
Why can't you go across the back of the house with a deck in the pool? Instead of going down for the water more, why can't you go across the back of the house?
Because of the elevations that are here with the lawn, it slows down more, so we would be digging into and creating more lawn and soil disturbance in the area. So we're essentially building out of grade at the back of the deck there. So at one point, we did look at coming off of here, but then there was a tree that would have to be removed. And then also the cut and fill that we would have to do in the yard itself would just create more disturbance. We're trying to minimize that, but and then the flow coming off of the deck as well.
Any other questions?
Um, I have a question for the group because I'm not allowed to make a motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we are going into a buffer zone or interim buffer zone in a degraded area. And if I could, I would make a motion that we have had report on would the granting of an area variance cause, and I'm quoting, adverse impact on the environment. The area is already degraded. And we are not even asking for them to increase the non-grading. I can't think of the right word of it. And so I think we should look into if there would be any degrading of the area, would there be a change in drainage? So if someone would like to make a motion on having a CAC report on that, I would suggest it.
You said the area was already degraded. What do you mean by that?
Because the area has been denuded of all of its natural, it's a buffer zone that you would normally see in a buffer zone. It's now a lawn. It was not done by those people who own it. It's been done a while back. So
Right.
that area is degraded. It's been nicely cared for. It is, but we're going into this area and I won't, there could be problems because the area already has a degradation.
What? It's lawn now. How could that be degraded from, I mean, there is gonna obviously be some erosion that's going to be able to be maintained by that lawn. I guess I'm not, I'd like to know how, if that lawn was just put in and there was no sod base, it would be different to me. But because it's been there a significant amount of time, I think that there's some probably stability there. That's fine.
Yes, but we're now disturbing.
Yeah, but we're not disturbing how, we're only disturbing a portion of it, and there's still going to be a major portion still behind it to hold that. We really, I think the construction is going to be kept to a minimum. I'm not gonna think that. We have things in place to keep that to a minimum during the construction. And we already talked about the drainage and that possibly being somewhere else. So, or brought to a different area. So,
I'd also note that several months ago, when we started having this discussion, the determination was made that there was not a need for an additional vegetative buffer. So there was enough of a lack of a concern that adding a vegetative buffer was not something that.
I'm not asking for vegetative.
No, I know, Carol, but that's another option to consider,
Yes,
you know.
well, we're not allowed to ask them to do that, am I correct?
Well, what it is there's a few properties on this road with those man-made ponds.
Yeah.
And a while back, I'm not sure when the map is from exactly, but the town of Ankrum went through and delineated them as non-significant habitats. So they don't have the same regulations or the need for that 25-foot buffer from the water course.
Do that again.
So there's a
The town
few,
went through and said they were not significant habitats.
so this is from the town of Ankrum. So this is our property location
Yes.
here, and there's a few others here. So these white ones
Yeah.
are determined as non-significant because they don't fall into one of these coatings. And then, so basically what it's saying is there's not wildlife, there's not, well, you're saying there's not, wetlands and flora and fauna and things that are providing, life there.
I am concerned, though, that there is apparently an intermittent stream from that pond because I stepped in it.
Right. Well, yes, there is like towards the south end of the property.
So all of this, the change, there's some change in grading, some change. Okay.
Carol,
I
just,
guess,
no, that's fine. I'm sorry, Steve. But I realized that was also mentioned in Dan's
yes, right,
report.
and yes,
So I noticed it in that as well. So, I don't know if we have to talk about all of her points or whatever.
let me see if I have any other question. That is,
So some, maybe ease some of your concerns during construction, and we'll put up silt fence to control any erosion or silt or anything going towards the pond. And then we'll reseed it and we can wait to remove the silt fence until the lawn is reestablished.
is that your practice?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, we do that on a typical basis.
I mean, you wait
Yes.
to remove the silk.
Yeah, so if we feel like it's not gonna cause an issue, then we'll remove it, like it's generally
Yeah,
flat.
yeah.
But if it's, on more of the slope, you can always leave it in a little bit longer, let the lawn be established, take it out, fix that little area. But we'd be happy to do that.
So you're also concerned that the grade is going to change. So can we make a stipulation that the grade from full site to the pond site does not change in grade?
We can't make that stipulation.
I think we can.
We can.
Yes, to answer your question before, the board absolutely does have the authority to grant a variance, but under the condition of some stipulation. So you might recall when we granted the area variance up on Nivers Road, one of the stipulations that we put in was because the variance was very material, we added a stipulation that the builder or the homeowner had to add an additional 15 feet of native vegetative buffer to the 12 or 13 feet that were already there. So yes, we do have the authority to
Okay.
add stipulation. From the drawing that I saw originally, I think your plan view drawing, your elevation view, it seemed like from the pool, the remainder didn't change.
Correct.
If the construction was only, and it really wasn't construction, you were going up
Right.
on that side of the pool.
Right, we're gonna have a bit of disturbance to get like the foundation on that working and then the plumbing, but then when we put everything back, we're gonna have to meet the grade on either side. So all the grading and the elevations are gonna stay as is.
Okay, any other questions or comments from anything online? Anything from the audience here? Okay, can I get a motion that we close the public hearing?
I make the motion to close. the public hearing.
Second,
In favor, aye, so moved. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen now, just for the edification. Sharon? For the edification of folks in the audience and online, what we will do now as a board, the 3 voting members, is go through what's called a short environmental assessment form. We'll answer the questions on that form. And then there are 5 specific criteria that the ZBA will go through one by one, make a determination on, and following That discussion will conduct a vote on whether or not to grant the area variance. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful to everyone. May I borrow your pen? Can we go through this? Jay, I've got the impact assessment form here, but I don't have the five copies of the five criteria for folks that we need that form to.
Okay, they're on the front page. If you want.
Yeah, no, I got them, but we need that
You need
form
form,
to
okay.
physically fill out, and I have to sign it after these, we have
Just
to
to
sign it.
clarify, you're doing this without the response from the county and, you're making the determination that this is an unlisted action. Is that correct?
Yes. All right, let me go through this, this impact assessment form. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No or small impact, moderate to large. Let's see, Will.
I'm gonna go with. I don't feel like it's large, so it has to be no. I think it's a small impact.
Sharon,
Small.
I would concur. Will a proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
No.
No. Will the proposed action impair the quality, the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
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 Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. We determine it's not. Will a proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Unless they have some really big parties. Will a proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Certainly, would be a small impact, yes.
Will a proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies or treatment facilities? No, no. Will a proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will a proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Will a proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No,
Yeah, I'd say small impact would be some.
Small,
Okay,
yes.
agree.
it's on the no side. Will
Will a proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
Mhm.
It's great. So just as a reminder for you, and so the public knows, the reason that we do this is that for anything that we answered that there was a moderate or large impact to, we're required to identify that on this form along with any mitigation activities that we're putting in place. So it's not just for the sake of going through it, it's to make sure that we're paying attention to mitigation activities if need. Okay. Next, we'll go through this form, the area variance findings and decision. For the factors that are considered, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties.
No,
Whether benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. Whether the requested variance is substantial.
it's kind of substantial.
Substantial. total of 76 feet, as I recall, is that right? Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created? Absolutely. The ZBA, after taking into consideration the above 5 factors, finds that one, the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance request is denied. Or the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community.
Second, sure.
All right.
But he owns the whole property around him, you know, it's not, I don't feel like the impact is great to neighborhood or anything.
I agree with what Will said, yeah.
Are there any conditions that the board would like to impose upon the finding if it's positive?
Well,
Carol, this form, by the way, has.
Yeah.
room for us to put the conditions in.
Yes.
well, I'd like to put that condition in about not changing that grade. Right, behind, you know, because I don't disagree with it, I just, you know, I mean, I don't, if it's undisturbed and it's been that way for, I don't know how long. I think it's probably managing itself pretty well. However, I think that there should be some proper, wherever you discharge that water, you should concentrate. I think you will, but I would like to make sure that that's concentrated in a fashion that either it's pumped further away, further up the hill, or something of that nature.
Is that a formal condition you'd like to put in,
Um,
or you just should make it a suggestion to the builder?
Well, I think we've had some recommendations here. And I'm kind of responding to some of that.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna just, you know, for the drawdown for the winter, we could, you know, put it further up the hill, so that there's more time to run.
I'm just curious as to how you could do that. You draw the water out and dump it up the hill. And then, I mean, it's a physical thing, you don't have.
Okay.
Literally a pump and a hose.
Typically, Carol, even if we're doing a project here and we have a catch basin to catch runoff with silt and things, we can pump it 100 feet away uphill in the grass and the grass filters it out.
Nice.
That's the point of that.
Right, just bear with me while All right, Will and the rest of the board, how does this sound? Condition number 1, no change in grade upon construction. Condition number 2, annual drawdown to be conducted by pumping water to uphill grasses.
And he may have that depending where the equipment's going.
Exactly,
The pool equipment, yeah.
yeah, we'll go further, you know, we'll go as far as.
Right,
You're not gonna put the equipment between that and the pond looking at it.
Right.
It'll be around the side or something. Yeah.
all right, we'll vote now. This is an aye or nay vote. Sharon,
I vote aye along with the conditions that we put down.
Will,
I vote aye with conditions that we included.
and I vote aye with the conditions. Okay. Variance is granted.
Excellent, thank you very much.
What will happen now is, Jay and I will turn this into a formal document, which you'll get a copy of, so that will allow you to go ahead with Ed or whatever your next step is on the construction.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Carol, thank you for your input.
Thank you for the questions.
No,
Wes.
no, not at all, not at all.
This is exactly how the board is supposed to work. By giving everybody an opportunity to provide some input.
Opening our eyes to something you might show.
Yep, and great. Okay. Thanks to the whole board for your participation. All right, the next is Rosenblatt and Fischler, or Fischler and Rosenblatt, which we much better. Rosenblatt and Fischler. Can I get a motion to open the public meeting?
I mean, the motion that open.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, meeting is open. Are there any comments from the public here in the room? Anybody?
Nobody wants to talk.
Okay. Nobody online?
Yeah.
All right, let's just give it a minute in case somebody's being shy. No, no.
Having trouble with the wetland boundary on the map. Can you point it out to me? I think that's your house.
No. So, what, if this is the lake,
Yes,
the area of that map that was identified as a wetland is up in this corner.
I think you visited the property, right?
I did.
So you were down at the lake.
Yes,
So this corner here is right off the road.
that's a lawn, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a lawn that we can't even grow grass on, so to be depicted as a wetlands is kind of ironic
Okay,
in its own
okay.
situation.
And it makes no sense. Also, you were there, so from here, you have to walk down to the lake.
Right.
So that's the highest point for the
Kind
property.
of grade down.
Yes.
So what we did is we went back and forth between the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers. And they both basically said, you don't need a permit from us. But neither of them took responsibility for revising the map.
Okay. Okay, I remember you
I
said
think-
something like that, but
I think that's the long and short of it.
Yeah,
Did you reach out to them as well?
I did reach out to someone, I believe it was Bill, maybe, at the Army Corps of Engineers, who, was the last person, because that intrusion
Right.
onto the property itself is an NWI wetland. I did not receive a response. I still, put out the publication and the mailings. And was hoping that we hear back from the.
And I know a responding Dave also reached out to them. They
Yeah.
did get a response, but, and the response was that they, based upon what they said, that we don't believe them, but they're not redrawing the map. It was probably a mistake.
Right?
Yep.
And it's been radio silence since
Yeah.
that time.
Well, we agreed that we would move forward with this public hearing and consideration of the variance, acknowledging that it was unlikely that either one of those bodies was going to take responsibility for the mistake and correct it, and that you were best protected by going through this process
Mhm.
and getting the variance. But I think anybody that looks at that map goes, huh?
well, I walked it.
I used other words.
How can there be a wetlands at the side of the hill 6 feet in, in that one spot? But
That is weird.
it is what it is. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I would like to ask you some more questions. If I remember, I did not read this, but if I remember, your side porch, you are going to enclose, correct?
The house is going to be built up another story.
What about that side porch that is very close to your neighbor's property?
Well, that will just be rebuilt. It has to be rebuilt.
Yes, I realize that, but will it go up higher?
No,
No, it's not going to be enclosed,
no,
so your neighbor is not going to feel a little claustrophobic, you're so close. to
no,
it.
his house is much further away from what you remember.
But it's still very close to his property. Okay. And I have some ignorant, I can only say that because I understand this is a non-conforming building. And there are some restrictions on non-conforming buildings, which I read several times and couldn't understand. So, so I just know if can this non-conforming building be legally enlarged or structurally altered? And it says, a non-conforming use may be rebuilt in the event of partial destruction thereof to occupy the same space on the lot, or may be rebuilt to provide greater yard space and less lot coverage, and to not exceed the height of the totally or partially destroyed building. So this isn't destroyed, but I'm just not sure if since it's a non-conforming building, are they allowed to structurally alter it?
My kids destroyed it, just like.
I'm actually looking by a non-conforming building. It's a lot.
The lot is non-conforming, I take that back.
Is the lot non-conforming versus the building? I think that's what.
The lot.
The
The
lot.
lot is not, the building
itself.
is there, it's been grandfathered in that matter lot, yes, it's just the lot, so it's not the building. So we-
Virtually every single house in this neighborhood, all 26 of them, is non-conforming.
The lot, but the buildings are conforming. Correct? Or should be. You don't know every building, yes, but so my question is, we're now on a non-conforming lot with a conforming building, which is being redone. Is this legal?
Well, I would have expected Ed to come back and tell us if it wasn't. I would
Okay.
count on his expertise.
Okay. That's good thinking.
Not looking to lay blame somewhere else, but he is the one that would be.
I just try, it's all so new to me, I'm just trying to put it all together.
And Carol, just having the fact that we've had many, I mean, this has been a year plus in communication.
Yeah.
This has been a very lengthy back and forth with Ed, and they are just really trying to see
Yeah. Yeah.
what is legal.
Okay. Okay.
It's an interesting point because we've had this situation before. Several times, I think, and the footprint did change. And I can remember.
This is very interesting. There is no definition in the zoning law for footprint. Footprint is not changing, and one discussion I had, they said, well, it was the porch was part of the footprint. I said, to me, that's no, but we have no definition of footprint. That's another thing. That's zoning revisions committee.
Yeah. Well, Carol, my interpretation, right or wrong, the ZBA, we can only do three things. And that's it. We can grant the use variance. We can grant an area variance. And we're the only legally entitled body in New York State that is here to interpret the law. It is not our role to decide if a building is non-conforming or not. That's Ed's. And the only reason people come here typically is if someone, in fact, all the time, because it's appealable, if someone tells them no. And told them no, the reason was this weird wetlands, and what we're here to decide is whether or not we're going to grant a variance to that. After that, that's, I think that's the extent of our authority as a body. Okay. Now, I'll go back, and now that I've said that, I'm going to think about it some more, because it's an opinion, but we've been pretty consistent that people only come here if they're told no to something, usually by Ed. And we don't go beyond that. The planning board might certainly be involved in that, but not us. Okay, can I get a motion to close the public meeting?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
That's it.
I so moved. All right, Jay, we got another set of these forms for us to use. Thank you.
While we're waiting for that. Once we have made our resolution, I can get rid of these photos.
Yeah, there are, Jay is responsible for keeping permanent copies of all of these. Yeah.
It's my shelf is getting low.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you, Jay. All right. Let's go through the same thing.
So is this going to be referred back to the planning board, this particular one?
I don't know what, if it is approved, then it goes back to Ed and what, I'm not sure what the next steps are after that. I don't know if he's just gonna grant a permit or whether,
I think it then becomes just a written permit. Unless they're.
Jay, what's your opinion on that? The question, Will just asked whether or not, if this variance were to be granted, and Ed were then to issue a building permit, does it still go to the planning board afterwards?
If and issues building permit. It would not. Go to the plan.
Will a proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or zoning regulations?
Can you,
We're going through the short environmental impact form.
okay, are we calling this an unlisted action?
Is there some reason we shouldn't?
Personally, I would say so, but
That we're calling it an unlisted action? Or that we shouldn't go through this now?
well, I think that the board may wish to review the to list.
Okay, Jake, tell me more why. What's the purpose of that?
So prior to doing the environmental review, the lead agency would have to make a determination as to whether it's a type 1 action, a non-listed action, or type 2.
Okay. And which one of those do you see that this is, Jake?
I can't make that determination.
Okay. I don't think there's any downside to doing that. Where would we find those actions, the definitions?
So the type 2 list is at 617. And one is also in the other.
Sorry, Jay, when you say 617, section 6,
That's section 617.5.
Not in the town of Angren, this is New York State laws.
Right, New York codes, are in our title 6, section 6, got to be same.
All right, Jay, I'm gonna have trouble finding that.
It's not in the zoning law.
It's not.
Not in there.
Yeah, look it
Can
up
you read
online.
them out to us?
Okay. Actions or classes of actions identified in subdivision C of this section are not subject to review under this part except as otherwise provided in this. These actions have been determined not to have a significant impact on the environment or otherwise precluded from environmental review under Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8. The actions identified in subsection C of this section apply to all agencies. B, each agency may adopt its own type 2 actions to supplement the actions of subdivision C of this section. No agency is bound by an action on another agency's type 2 list. The fact that an action is identified as a type 2 action in an agency's procedures does not mean that it must be treated as a type 2 action by any other involved agency not identifying it as a type 2 action in its procedures. An agency that identifies an action as not requiring any determination or procedure under this part is not an involved agency. Each of the actions on an agency type 2 list must in no case have a significant adverse impact on the environment based on the criteria contained in section 617.7C of this part and not be a type 1 action as defined in section 617.4 of this part. C, the following actions are not subject to review under this part. Maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes in an existing structure or facility. Replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building, energy, or fire codes unless such action meets or exceeds any of the thresholds in 617.4 of this part. Retrofit of an existing structure and its appurtenant areas to incorporate green infrastructure. 4, agricultural farm management practices, including construction, maintenance, and repair on buildings and structures, and land use changes consistent with generally accepted principles of farming. Repaving of existing highways not involving the addition of new travel lanes. 6, street openings and right-of-way openings for the purpose of repair or maintenance of existing utility facilities. 7, installation of telecommunication cables in existing highway or utility right-of-way, utilizing trenchless burial or aerial placement of on existing poles. 8, maintenance of existing landscaping or natural roads. 9, construction or expansion of a primary, accessory, appurtenant, non-residential structure or facility involving less than 400 square feet of gross floor area and not involving a change in zoning or a use variance or consistent with the local land use control, but not radio communication or microwave transmission facility.
4,000 square feet. So I think it's more.
10, routine activities of educational institutions, including expansion of existing facilities by less than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area and school closing, but not changes in use related to such closings. 11, construction or expansion of a single family or a 2-family or a 3-family residence on an approved block, including provision of necessary utility connections as provided in paragraph 13 of this subdivision, and the installation, maintenance, or upgrade of a drinking water well or septic system or goal and conveyances of land in connection therewith. 12, construction, expansion, or placement of a minor accessory accessory at first unit residential structures, including garages. Carports, patio decks, swimming pools, tennis courts, satellite dishes, fences, barns, storage sheds, or other buildings not changing land use or density. 13, extension of utility distribution facilities, including gas, electric, telephone, cable, water, and sewer connections to render service in approved subdivisions working in connection with any action on those lists. 14, installation of solar.
Okay, yeah, how many more are there?
Um,
Or 46.
How many?
46.
46. Well. I'm gonna go back to kind of where we started, as you were reading those definitions, Jay, and in my opinion, and the rest of the board should give theirs, there is not going to be any substantial environmental impact, which would make this a let's say a limited action, sorry, unlisted action. Does anyone here see a material environmental impact? Well, then let's just move forward and call this an unlisted action. Okay. If I need to be corrected later, I'll be corrected. Okay. Go through this short environmental assessment form. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or zoning regulation? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
No.
Probably small impact, right? And bedroom. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? You're gonna have a lot more children around.
Just that's still being.
Go either way.
And we will not call that a large impact. Will a proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will a proposed action result in an adverse change in existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will a proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation and renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact water supplies, waste treatment, utilities? No and no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will a proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? We already said no. Will a proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will a proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? So there are no determinations of significance here, which is good. Next, let's go through the area variance finding and decision. Whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties.
No.
Whether benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. Whether the requested variance is substantial.
Variance, no, but the size is significant, right? I mean, it's only a second floor.
But no,
But
but
then
that's what the variance is about.
Yeah, the variance is the.
Is about the wetland, not about the house.
Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created? I don't know why they have that question there, because it's always.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you're here. Okay,
It's hardly some creative replacement
Mhm.
of that point.
Gotta love the law, Carol. The ZBA, after taking consideration of the 5 factors, this is for the 3 of us that are voting, the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance request is denied. The benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community. So before we vote, are there any conditions that anyone on the board would recommend that we apply here? I don't have any.
Mhm.
Okay, aye or nay? Will?
I,
I vote aye. Okay. You have your variance?
No, onward enough.
Literally.
Thank you very
Now
much.
the problem starts.
Oh, yes.
Continues, that continues. They say 2 months.
We don't, no, we'll be. Hello.
No.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a trip.
Okay, on to new business. Venter. I mean, how do I pronounce your last name?
Venture, it was very good.
Okay, good, good. Okay, Mr. Kazaklar,
Mr. Zaklar is not here today.
Okay,
Appearing on.
all right. We're all ears. What would you like?
I'm sorry, I don't necessarily know how this process is supposed to go. But we would like to put in a pool. It sounds like you have quite a similar application that you at the beginning. So we have wetlands on our property. There's a pond that abuts the property. And so because of where it's quite a narrow, long lot, and so because of where the wetland pond comes in, really the vast majority of our lot is within one of the many buffer zones. And so the house itself, I think, is within Ancrum's 150-foot buffer zone at this point. But the sort of yard that we're looking at putting this in is in the rear of our house. And so there's about a, say, 6-foot amount of that would be within the DEC's buffer zone. And so we've already got their permit. They came out, they did a site visit, their biologists studied the plans, they looked at all of the equipment that's going to be used, et cetera, and signed off on it with 2 conditions. One, that we install silt fencing prior to construction to ensure that no erosion impacts the wetland, and then the second be that when the permanent fence is put in around the pool, we put fine grade mesh of, I think 10 inches is what the permit requires, around the very bottom of the period portion that's within the DEC's buffer zone, though I think we plan to just do it throughout to prevent any endangered wildlife from potentially getting sort of through there and into the pool, given the presence of turtles in the area. And so,
Is the pool itself going to be in wetlands?
no.
That would be rattlesnakes over there.
Yeah, no. So the way
Comforting
the,
thought.
the way the property sits, there's sort of the house, there's about say 50 feet of grass lawn, and then quite a steep slope down. And then the rest of the property is sort of about 15 feet lower than where the house and the lawn sits. And so the wetland property or portion is down that sort of 15-foot slope.
Okay.
But because of the sort of dimensions of the lot, there's not there's really no way for us to do this in a way that doesn't involve the 150-foot buffer, because when you go in front of the house, you're in deep wooded forest. When you go to the side of the house, you're where our leach field is. Even sort of closer to the side of the house, there's the well, and we need the required setbacks from where the well is. And so really the only location that we found and that our builders found that's sort of suitable is this grass area in the lot behind the house.
Do you have a map for us to look at?
Could be one in that package.
Yeah, I delivered
Is there?
several copies. They are in the packet.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Oh, so yours, I must have talking.
So it's a, yeah, fold out by fold page that I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
I
there
don't have
should
it
be
in mind, but
one in this as well.
And he's going.
got it. Thank you.
Right, and I'm sorry, the one that you're looking at, so just to make it clear to those who are confused, because the DEC permit is included in our application. The plot that we went to the DEC with had an additional step that we were going to use the soil that was excavated to sort of grade a portion of the land. We're not planning to do that. That was really just a sort of item of opportunity. We're gonna have a bunch of soil, and so thought we could do something with it. But I think after speaking with Ed and JL and others, sort of the amount of potential disturbance and process to go through, sort of having that portion occur was too great. So you'll see that in the DEC permit page, but that's not part of our application.
That's not on.
So the whole build area is under 600 square foot. It's small.
Yes, yeah, the pool size that we're planning here is 15 by 31 with
Yeah.
just a 1 foot coping around the pool, so there won't be any other impervious surfaces that are laid down. We're not putting a deck or patio or anything like that in. So I think the impact to the actual sort of irrigation in the area should be relatively minimal, because the only actual impervious surface is that 1 foot strip around the pool.
This is the wetlands. It's not in this area, even though this is a low one.
Yeah, Carol joined us today.
Yeah, this has Ancrams marked on it, 150.
So. May I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went to visit it today because in reading the DEC report, it said it was a class 1 wetland. The block is a class 2, which is not as important as a class 1 wetland. And I was very surprised that DEC allowed a pool in a class in the buffer zone of a class 1 wetland. So I called them. And I spoke to Kristen. And we had a long conversation. She is the environmental analyst there. And when you read this, all of the DEC's concerns, they had wildlife biologists there. They had environmental biologists, I guess I could call that they had a whole bunch of staff there, go there, and they have all put in their requirements that would allow this in a buffer zone. She finished by saying, if this was in the wetlands, no way, but it is in the buffer zone.
Correct.
And I mean, if you read the DEC report, that is quite a lot of
They're thorough.
conditions that they put on that. I nearly fell to the floor, but I understand now where they're coming. I just wanted to share it with you because my concern was class 1 wetland.
Do you know where these wetlands fall in Ancrum's environmental map where we prioritize, or Jay had just showed I think it was Carol.
Yeah.
That map. for the
Was it
previous
Chris?
applicant. Oh, was it Chris? Oh, sorry.
I don't know the classification within Ankrum. I can try to find that out.
It would be in the back of the bundle.
Yeah, well, we can look at it.
I will note this is a saltwater pool that we're planning to put in. That was one thing that the DEC was, they wanted to make sure that it was a saltwater pool just because if there was ever some exogenous leak or something like that were to be created, it would be significantly less harmful. Though I don't see that as being an issue.
Really kind of interesting that 20 years ago, salt water was, don't use that, use fresh water and chlorine.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's kind of going the other way because of the sweat. Salt content of the water. Any other questions for? So the way this process works is, Jay will organize for all of us the next ZBA meeting, and assuming she believes all of the paperwork is in order, we will hold a public meeting then. Be prepared for tons of comment like we got tonight, which, is our responsibility to consider, and then we'll go through the same process.
That's great.
So to clarify, the next, that is supposed to be a meeting is June 24th. I'm not aware of any holidays on that date, so probably the ZBA to declare the application.
Yeah.
That for a public hearing.
Yeah, in light of some of the health challenges we've got, before we finalize that meeting, I'm gonna be in St. Thomas on that date. And I'm wondering if we should push it off a week to ensure that we've got a quorum, because we certainly are not gonna resolve this zoning issue and, have someone else or two other people be nominated as voting members. Maybe we should just do that, Jay. Maybe just go with June.
That would be July.
July 1st.
Like,
Yeah, 30 days have September, April, June, and then,
looking at it.
Thank you. Gotta remember my nursery rhymes.
I use that still.
Yeah, I just did. Okay, so why don't we go with July 1st, if that's okay? Jay, does that work for you? And work for the rest of the board?
I'm an alternate, so.
Oh, but the CLC is from the postpone it.
Okay, so we'll target July 1st for the next meeting.
All right. See you on that. Thanks very much.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you for the motion.
So, yeah, we need to make a motion for us to be the lead agency.
I make a motion to become a lead agency.
Second it.
In favor, aye, so moved. Okay, Mr. Dell,
We have to make a thing for a public, are we doing a public hearing? We have to do that. I can't hear, my ears plugged.
yes, we'll do a public hearing that night, at least for him.
And do we need to make a motion for that? Is it a motion or is it a resolution or is it a?
Motion first to declare the application.
Okay, I make a motion that we deem the application complete. Can't see his name here.
Okay, seconded.
I seconded
All in
it.
favor, aye, okay, so moved.
And then set the public hearing for Monday, July 3rd.
Please.
I make a motion, we set the public hearing for July 1st.
I second it.
Do that. That's how it has to be done.
Sure.
So moved. Okay. All right. Next and last on the agenda, Mr. Christie.
Mr. Christie, yes.
I'm Michael Del Rossi, I'm Christine Wilson's husband. We own property at 5 Short Drive. Been in the area on and off for about 30 years now. We used to rent from Coral Eddy for 10 years in the winter. And we were lucky enough to dump our entire retirement fund into George's old house in 2002. Everything about the place is great. Friends, quiet, cycling, beautiful views, everything except space. And Christy, my wife, has to put up with me for just long enough that we need to rebuild to save her sanity. So don't think of this as a zoning variance. Think of it as saving a marriage.
Like, is this the same house across from James?
Yes, from James's
Barn.
barn, yes,
Yeah.
blue house. We're planning on rebuilding the current house as it was built with lumber from the dump. And every other stud is either sistered or button jointed. In fact, the siding of the garage came from a crate marked property of IBM Poughkeepsie. And if we do take it down, I will be taking that piece and framing it. Because whoever did it, he used everything he could. Anyway, so onto the variances that we'd like. We'd like to take down both the house and the garage. And we'd like to increase the footprint. We'd be going about 8 feet towards the lake for the garage. And we've spoken with the DEC and Kristen there, and he said they have no jurisdictional problem with that. Get my notes here on that. Anyway, as far as increasing the footprint of the garage towards the house, we wanted to attach it towards the house. Right now, there's about a 4-foot separation between the house and the garage. We'd like to sort of, attach it so that we can park the car and then go in during the inclement weather. We would also like to push the house forward towards the roadway. Right now, it's about 25 feet from the edge of the road. We'd like to increase it so it's 18 feet or so from the edge of the road, so about another 6 feet there. And then also increase it going north to the other part of our property, another six feet or so. One of the things we would like to do is put a retaining wall in on the other part of the property. As all the properties are there, they all slope down towards the lake.
Could you
And-
show us?
Oh, sure.
The retaining wall.
So the retaining wall will be here. On that part of the,
That's down towards the swimming area, access, yeah.
towards the,
Community.
And what is
Yeah.
this? What is this? one?
that line is the property line.
The head, no, the red line.
The red line is the property line.
Property line.
Yeah, I mean, the survey doesn't really
Okay,
match with the drawings that I did.
okay.
So I don't know if it's a problem with me or a problem with the actual survey, the original survey.
So basically, your house now is somewhat irregular, and it looks like you're gonna make it rectangular.
Well, it is rectangular. This portion is a porch, which is staying.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not coming
Okay.
close to the foundation. We're back about 4 feet from the edge of that foundation with the garage, which is what we'd like to do. In addition, both of these structures, or one combined structure, would be 2 stories. And yes, it's a lot, I know.
How high will it be?
It'd be less than 35 feet, which is the limit.
Less than 35.
Yeah,
2 stories and repeat, yeah.
So really, Mike, and I think we just need to update this paperwork.
Right.
Just for, to be completely crisp, you're really asking us for 2 variances.
Okay.
Right? One variance is an area variance from the body of water.
Correct.
Because you're getting closer, and there's a second variance because the front setback is 20 feet.
Right.
You're asking for it to be 18.
Right.
So if you could just update the paperwork and specify that you're requesting 2 variances, that would
Okay.
be,
Sorry.
that would make it clear. You recall we went through this with the ACA too, when they first came to us at Concern for the Arts. And they wanted the side variance, and we pointed out they had to have a front variance too.
Can I clarify some of the process on this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you do have to update the paperwork, that should be done with Ed. This is in the lower Rhoda, and it is a non-conforming lot. So the way that the non-conforming lots work is there's also a thing that says if it is a non-conforming lot, use this calculation. So Ed will have to go through, he did this with the Fischlers. So I would just clarify that Ed and somebody should make sure that, because they don't quite work for any districts besides the ag district. So it may not be as clean as just looking at what the normal setback is in the lower Rhoda district. And then, Mr. Delrotsky will also have to go to the planning board. I do have that referral on file, so this is going to be a multi-month process and go to the planning board, make sure they themselves to the agency. And then send it back to the ZBA.
And so Jay, just for our edification, it has to go to the planning board because,
Ed made a determination that it needed site plan.
oh, okay.
I think, did you have a conversation with him today?
No, not today.
Okay, I think it was because it was over 4,000 square feet. Is that?
So
That
just,
seems, that seems familiar, with our earlier discussions, with Ed and I. And, we can always, cut that back a bit. I mean, right now, we're just looking to see if we can get that amount of space. We have no plans yet. We have not hired an architect yet. So we're really in the beginnings, throes of, going through the process, and it's the first time we've done it. So, I mean, if there's something that we need to pull back to lessen the square footage, so there'll be more conforming, then we can figure that out.
So he needs an architect, but he has to be, in order to get his plans, he needs the variance has to be approved. Am I correct?
No.
No.
You can hire an architect whenever if you want to pay that.
But you won't, I mean, for nothing. I mean, if you don't get the variance, you can't do anything.
Right, I mean, all those plans would be useless. at that point.
Useless, yeah, right.
So
What,
he has to get this variance before he can do any plans, but he's going to the planning board. For what?
so why are we at both spots at the same time?
Because this is how Nan and John Lyons recommended.
Okay, so this is a new change, okay. So if we go through this and he gets approved, then it'll be the planning board will be working on what they wanna. Kind of like we're conflicting.
No, well, if we do the variance, if we say it's okay to build here, they're working on the site plan, right? So it's a little.
Yeah, but they work with the sizing of the variant.
But we're gonna keep them only at this. These are our parameters. You can't go down closer to the water. You can't. You're, so like unless he has to come back to us and change that, is that right?
well, it sounds like the reason this is different from the first one we did, which is not going to the planning board, is Ed made a determination that it requires a site plan review. If he were to determine it did not require a site plan review, then we could become the lead agency. And Ed would just issue a building permit and it wouldn't go to the planning board. But I confess ignorance around the topic, around what drives that. So I'll be interesting for all of us to get educated.
So what happens now?
That's the
What
question.
do we tell this?
I think what happens now is Mike goes to Ed and say, we went to in front of the ZBA. There was a question around a requirement for a site plan review, and Jay also correctly brought up the multiplication factor. So if you look at on page 52 and 53, these are all the setbacks.
Yeah.
Right, and they're in Lower Roden. And you'll see in the second page, this multiplication factor, which Ed also uses because it's in that zone. So I think the next conversation is, you know, we're not doing anything tonight, but listening anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yes.
It's not gonna add any time to you to do
No,
that.
of course. So I go back to Ed and we discuss what exactly the size.
Well, if I were in your shoes, I would ask him why the requirement for a site plan review. And if in fact he sticks with that, then, you know, the next step is, I think you'd come back to us for the variance, and we'll go to the planning board, then we're gonna become a lead agency.
So I am working on finalizing the planning board agenda. I will put you on the planning board agenda. I think the ZBA should give him a general feel about what they see regarding his process or regarding his proposal.
Any opinions?
Looking at this. Knowing the property next door, knowing the size of his lot, I see no issue with it. I mean,
Where's the septic, Mike?
The septic is off of the porch area.
So it's in this.
I mean, it's over in, yeah, where, yeah, it's over here in this area right here.
Okay. I mean, to me, the front setback is still what, 18 feet versus 20.
There's some houses that are that closer, more.
Yeah,
Right?
and
So-
moving the garage closer to the lake simply brings the garage more in line with the rest of the house.
The rest of them down there. It's like everybody the past several years down that whole road has hit the lottery.
And it certainly has been busy down there the last couple of years.
All except my buddy Freddie, he's still saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so kind of a gut feeling is that it would kind of pass muster.
yes,
Okay, so Ed, planning board, ZBA again. Cool.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Your wife's making you do this, right, Mike? Because all the other houses down through there now, everything's new.
No, like I said, you know, I'm talking to crazy. She wants me to get me upstairs and over the garage, you know, so.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion, comments, questions from anyone? Okay, can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I make the motion that we close the meeting or adjourn.
Adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
A
All in
second.
favor? Aye, so moved. We can close the meeting. Thank you.